Good evening and welcome to Paranormal Lens. My name is Chad Thomas. I'm here with my co-host Jamie Widener, and we are members of Jotnick's Paranormal. How are you doing, Jamie?
I am living the dream, buddy. You know, I am. I am just. I can't be happier to be here. So, how are you doing?
Uh, I'm tired,
Me too. That's why I'm trying to fake it till I make it. I'm like,
and
ah,
and my chair's stuck. So give me a second here.
oh no.
Uh-oh.
My office chair has decided to randomly just drop. Like the
Uh-huh.
hydraulic is starting to go, and every once in a while I'll be sitting there and I'm like just sliding down.
And the keyboard's like up to your nose.
Yeah, well, it's not that low yet, but it's like I can feel it happening. I'm like, the room's not sinking, so it's the chair.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
maybe it's a ghost. You know.
maybe. So, how's your week?
It's good so far. This week is so far so good. Very busy. You know, it's that time of the year. It's the season in my industry, so it's go time. That's a good thing. I think the same for you. I'm sure.
Yep,
Um, we got away a little bit over the weekend and did a thing.
we did.
We did. So we could chat about that a little bit if you'd like, or not. Either way, I haven't had time to really get into it too much with the stuff I captured, so it's just been busy. Um,
Well, since it's Kyle who liked us so far.
hey, Kyle. Yeah, so there's the mystery we've talked about where we were the last couple of weeks, but we in a small group went to White Hill over
Mhm.
in New Jersey, and we had an interesting evening. I think
We did, yeah.
at all levels of the house. It, it was quite different
Hmm.
than some of the stuff we have. There he is. Hey, Kyle. Um,
Yep.
yeah, every time we go, I shouldn't say this is my third time, but and you've been there, I think, a time before me, more than me. But I think every time we go, we have something happen, and we learn a little bit more than we knew
Hmm.
the last time. You know, and
Yep.
that I can speak from experience of having now two resident homes for Jotniks. You know, first being the Haldeman Mansion, and then now at Booby's Brewery. You know, we have that same ability because of our repetitive turns to build upon the last visit. You know,
Yep.
and that's such a, I don't want to say it's a shame because it's not the right way to say it, but it's one of the detriments when you are going off to a place. You know, like we went to the Conjuring House, like Dave and I went, and Tim and Erica went to the Conjuring House a year or so ago. You know,
Right.
or you go to like Waverly or wherever. Hey Bert, you know, you may only get to go there that one time because of the distance or the cost, or you know, because it's not just the cost of the place, it's the hotel, it's the time you take to get there. You know, it's like,
Mm.
you know, it's almost like a mini vacation, and
Right.
that's a paranormal vacation.
Right.
um, so you know,
And
you may only,
availability. I mean,
yeah, right, you only get to hit that place once, and you know, whatever happens is, it may be a continuance of something that's regularly occurring,
right.
or you know, something that is established there that you know you only got to experience just a little touch of. And
Right.
it's, you know, it's not a bad thing either way. It's not a bad thing. Hey Jim,
Hey, Jim.
good evening. It's just a thing, but when you get to go back to the same place again, you get to kind of build that rapport, and
Yeah.
that's cool. It's really cool. It's a privilege.
Hmm.
I said that before this weekend as well. Hello, Erica. So yeah, it was something.
Yeah,
Any
definitely.
reflections from you?
I got a lot of stuff to go through, but like you said, it was a very interesting evening. And we met a new person we had never investigated with before, so that was sort of fun.
That was cool. Yeah,
So,
you know, we don't get to. Oh, well, that is. Don't you worry. We'll be back. Um, the the cool thing too is we got to investigate with your son Alex, who I said
uh,
last week is a really good investigator. He's got really great instincts. I got to spend some alone time, if you will, with him in the
hmm.
speakeasy. Um,
Okay.
you know, and he had some really interesting things happening to him as well, as he's fairly sensitive. So
Hmm.
you know, it was a good time, and
Yeah. Yeah.
more to come, I guess, once we get the chance to sit down and actually get a chance to sit down, first of all, but uh, get a chance to get through some of the evidence.
Yep.
So cool.
But
Yeah.
tonight we're going to
Yeah.
talk about another place that I spent a lot of time in.
Okay.
Um, Fulton Opera House, Fulton Theater is what it's called now. But yeah, it was. Doing research for this brought back memories for me because I did spend a lot of time there. So I'm really looking forward to digging into it and sharing it with you guys because I had some personal experiences there. So,
Okay.
are you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
You want to go ahead and go to the next slide for me, Jamie?
I was so ready for that. I knew you were going to say it.
Sure. So
The one time I'm going to be prepared tonight.
The Fulton Opera House was known as the Grand Old Lady of Prince Street and sits at 12 North Prince Street in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's currently known as the Fulton Theater. The Fulton, just shortened, is commonly called, is a member of the League of Regional Theaters. The Fulton currently produces 6 live main stage shows a year and also produces a studio theater series. The Fulton has been a performance space for a long time, but that was not always the case. So go ahead and go to the next slide. The land was originally home to the Native Americans. There are at least 10 tribes that shared the land that we know as Lancaster County, but the largest tribe was the Susquehannocks. They were tall, athletic, and courageous. A small tribe of the Susquehannocks that settled along a creek outside of Lancaster were called the Conestogas. They were given that name by the European settlers. Now, the next section of history of this area has been very confused over the years. When researching it, I was getting thrown off by dates that were not lining up, so I had to reach out and phone a friend for some clarification. Luckily for me, I have a friend who is a historian and studied local history and has researched the Fulton a great deal. So it was just a text saying, "Hey, can I give you a call?" And she was happy to talk to me. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. The workhouse for colonial Lancaster was on Prince Street beside the old wooden jail. For those not familiar with what a workhouse was, it was a place that poor could go who couldn't afford to live any other place. They were given a job in exchange for a place to live and food to eat, but families were not kept together. Life was not good in a place like this, but the buildings were solid and provided protection. On December 14th, 1763, an event happened in a nearby village of Conestoga, which was, the Conestoga Native Americans that we talked about were in that area. 50 men from Lancaster and Dauphin counties were part of a vigilante group called the Paxton Boys. This group was led by a Presbyterian minister who believed the member of the Conestoga tribe was feeding information to the Lenape and Shawnee tribes that led to attacks on the area. Members of the group decided to find a man called Tensi Dagal, known to the settlers as Will Sock. I can understand why they shortened that name. He was believed to be providing the information. The attack happened at daybreak. There were 6 members of the Conestoga tribe present when the attack occurred. These 6 people were killed and scalped. The village was then set on fire and all the buildings were destroyed. You go to the next slide, please. There were 14 members of the tribe who were away from the village at the time. Upon returning and finding the village destroyed, Will Sock and the others sought refuge in Lancaster. They were placed in the workhouse for their protection. 2 weeks later, on December 27th, Lazarus Stewart and Matthew Smith took more men into Lancaster to eliminate the rest of the tribe. The group broke into the workhouse, pulled the surviving members of the tribe out, and proceeded to kill, scalp, and dismember them. It was a horrific situation. The Paxton Boys were never brought to justice. A reward was offered for their capture, but the people of Lancaster turned a blind eye to what had happened on that day. The memory of what happened on that day still lives in some Native American tribes. As recently as 2010, meetings have been held between churches and tribes, and Mayor Rick Gray of Lancaster expressed his distress that previous town leaders did not protect those they had pledged to protect. In the spring of 2016, a bishop from Lancaster County's Amish settlement met with representatives of dozens of Indian tribes. The bishop and 2 other Amish men apologized for the way their ancestors treated Native Americans and took their land. In an emotional session, both groups shed tears, and the reconciliation process continues. So that was just a blemish on that land, which sits at the corner that the Fulton is now. So jumping up in history a little bit Further, in 1774, the original county prison in Lancaster was having some issues. It was a log prison. After escapes, more prisoners that it could handle, and some other issues, it was decided to build a new stone prison in Lancaster at the corner of Prince and High Streets. Now, High Street would eventually be renamed King Street. In 1775, the new jail was opened in June. The prison was bigger, built from stone, some from the foundations of the workhouse, and had a workyard within its walls. In the summer of 1831, the wall of the workyard by West King Street was extended by 4 feet to help prevent escapes. This prison was used until September 12th, 1851, when prisoners were moved into a new facility on East King Street, which is still being used today.
Yes, it is. Wow, I forget that's that old.
Mm-hmm.
Cow.
So now we've had a tremendous tragedy, and then we had a prison there, and you know how prisons are. They just, they're
Hey, what are you saying?
they're always haunted.
Oh, okay.
Nope, sorry, Jamie. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
On May 4th, 1852, the Lancaster Intelligencer announced, Messrs. Hager and Eberman, the purchasers of the old prison property at the corner of West King and Prince Streets, it is said, intend to erect a large and commodious hall on that site during the present building season, a portion of which will be used for lectures, exhibits, etc. Such a building has been long needed in this city. We are pleased that 2 such public-spirited citizens have undertaken the matter. We have no doubt they will find it a profitable investment. Next slide, please. That was the beginning of the Fulton Hall. This is actually a rendering that Samuel Sloan did. So Samuel Hager was a prominent Lancastrian. He had a vision for a venue for lectures, meetings, and other performances. He hired Philadelphia architect Samuel Sloan to create the building. The design incorporated parts of the former jail foundation. If you visit Water Street in Lancaster, you can still see parts of this supporting the back wall of the theater. You go to the next slide. It opened on October 14th, 1852, to a packed house of 1,500 people. The first musical concert at the Fulton Hall was by violinist Ole Bull and 9-year-old soprano Adelina Patti to raise money for Bull's settlement of Scandinavians in Potter County. The building was named Fulton Hall to honor Robert Fulton, a Lancaster County native who is known for developing the world's first successful steamboat. The hall was used for many things in its early years. The Lancaster Court of Quarter Sessions used the facility while the courthouse was being remodeled between 1853 and 1854. The official document signing that merged Franklin and Marshall College took place at the Fulton, as well as other ceremonies over the years. Lectures by Horace Greeley and Mark Twain graced the stage, as well as a production of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, the building was also used to store tobacco and cow manure. So, it has been noted that at the time...
So Lancaster County right there.
Exactly. So, it's been noted at the time... and the 3rd floor had a shooting gallery in it.
Even more so. Yep.
There it is. So, it has been noted at the time that the hall could be hot and smelly. You could be watching a presentation and have smoke and dust from the shooting gallery drift down through the air. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. In 1856, Hager sold the Fulton to Blasius Yecker and Hilaire Zepfel. Zepfel sold his share to Yecker in 1869. Yecker proceeded to make the Fulton a place to go. In the 1860s, the growth of railroads encouraged the traveling stage show. Traveling theater shows took off in the 1870s, and they were a hit at the Fulton. Yecker commissioned Edward Forrester-Ang to remodel the theater. At this point, the hall was turned into a true performance space. Stage rigging was added, and a 21-foot proscenium arch was constructed. The auditorium also saw improvements. The floor was lowered, and a balcony was added. The grand opening of the Fulton Opera House took place on October 2nd, 1873, with Othello being performed as a benefit to the widows and orphans of the Civil War. In this period, Maude Adams and John Drew graced the stages of the Fulton. These years were the heyday of the Fulton. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. In 1903, Blasius Yecker's son, Charles, took over the theater. He hired C. Elmlin Urban to help renovate the theater. It was at this time that the interior was shaped as we see it today. The neoclassic design was ornate and beautiful. The second balcony, known as the Peanut Gallery, had its own entrance from the outside and seated people on wooden benches. The grand staircase and lobby are still in use today. The main auditorium was enlarged and had 8 box seats added. Now, just a note about those seats: they were not meant to be great seats, but to observe the show from. But you were meant to be seen in those. So, go ahead and jump to the next slide.
Like those two old guys from the Muppet Show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was in this era that the Fulton was known as the Queen of the Roadhouses. Sarah Bernhardt and George M. Cohen performed, and a production of John Herr, complete with a live chariot race, excited audiences. After 1910, theater attendance declined because movies were drawing bigger crowds. With fewer places to go, the traveling shows dried up. Yecker opened his own theater company. His shows included a burlesque show that did not meet the standards of the Law and Order Society. Talk about Lancaster County.
Yep.
He was arrested for exhibiting immoral shows. The building was sold and eventually came into the hands of Ralph W. Coho. Coho installed projection equipment and started showing.
I knew somebody was going to know their names. Thanks, Jim.
Coho installed projection equipment and started showing second-run movies while working in the occasional stage show. In 1931, Ethel Barrymore appeared on stage. The theater was used by various community groups for performances. For the most part, the Fulton had become a second-rate movie house. Live shows were not performed. In the 1950s, threats of leveling the theater came around. Joe Kingston, the editorial editor for the Intelligence Journal, launched a campaign to bring life back to the theater. There was a 100th anniversary gala, and the theater became a home for musical events, local productions, and touring shows. In 1957, the theater was converted into an arts film house with the occasional stage production. So it definitely did a lot of back and forths there.
Yeah.
In 1963, Nathaniel Hager, the great-grandson of the founder of the theater, created the Fulton Opera House Foundation. The group bought the building for $55,000 and began renovations. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. With a need to get people through the doors, the management ran first-run movies, including The Sound of Music and Thunderball. It became home to the annual Kiwanis Club production and the Lancaster Symphony Orchestra. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. In 1969, a woman by the name of Jean Clemson founded the organization called the Actors Company of Pennsylvania. They presented locally produced musicals and plays. It was also in this year that the theater was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. For the next 20 years, it would be rented out to local groups. In 1983, the theater officially became a regional theater working with the Actors Equity Association and began producing their own shows. In 1989, the Fulton Board launched what was known as the Landmark Campaign to restore the theater to its elegant space it once was. The goal was to raise $9.5 million. This money would restore the interior, upgrade technical systems, improve seating, add dressing rooms, a loading dock, and bring everything else up to code. That would be about $20 million today. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. The theater shut down in 1994 and reopened with a gala production on October 14th, 1995. The Actors Company merged with the Fulton Theater Company at the beginning of the 1995-96 season. They have been producing shows ever since. I believe that another renovation project has just been completed over the last few years to add actor housing, expand wing space for the stage, and provide more performance and educational spaces. Go ahead and jump to the next. What's that, Gene?
That's correct.
So
it's now this complex.
Yeah, it's gotten really big. Now, with the building that has so much history, especially theater, you have to have stories of spirits. The Fulton does not disappoint. In a theater, you will always have stories of phantom applause, pianos playing, or other music coming from nowhere. In a place with so much tragedy that happened here, people talk about screams emanating from thin air. I've heard rumors of all those things at the Fulton, and I know several people who have stories that could go on for days. But I wanted to give you documented things that have been recorded over the years, or ones that are personal experiences from people I know. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. The first story comes from the Fulton's website. It's about a woman named Marie Cahill. Several actors and stagehands reported seeing a woman in a white dress hovering around the bottom of an old wooden spiral staircase in the dressing rooms, or at the top of the staircase, which led up to stage right. A stagehand from Gettysburg, PA, saw her and asked her what her name was. She said Marie. Researchers discovered that an actress named Marie Cahill had performed many times at the Fulton. She was born when the Fulton became the Opera House and died when theaters started showing movies. Perhaps Marie is still waiting for her big break. Some people believe they see Marie as a white mist on the stage and in the house. Typically, she is seen by women. Marie was a bit of a diva and has allegedly screamed in the ears of leading ladies trying to mess them up on stage. So there's your first story. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. The second story is of the Whistler. Reports of the spirit go back several decades. You may encounter what sounds like someone whistling backstage. He has been known to whistle when people are messing up their lines or lyrics. He also seems to be a trickster and may cause actors to accidentally flub their lines. Several people have claimed to have seen him dressed in a three-piece suit, brown belt, and brown shoes. He also wears a straw boater hat. He seems to be a positive presence, not something, scary or anything like that. But remember that description because it comes up a couple other times. Now, an interesting thing, you never whistle in a theater. So it's interesting that this spirit is wandering around whistling. Because we talked about that in our superstitions episode.
You did.
So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. Mm-hmm. Before the 1995 renovation, the second balcony or peanut gallery had been closed to the public. It was still used as a workspace for lighting crew and spotlight operators. During a closed rehearsal, one of the spotlight operators saw a man sitting on one of the bench seats in the balcony. When intermission came, the operator approached the man and asked him if he had permission to be there. He pointed to an actress who had been on stage during the first act and said that was his granddaughter. At the end of the rehearsal, the man was nowhere to be seen. But the spotlight operator ran into the actress backstage. She said that she had talked to her grandfather and hoped that he'd enjoyed the show. The actress replied that both her grandfathers were dead and that neither of them had seen her perform. The lighting operator said, "Maybe one has now," and left it at that. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. There's also a story that happened during the renovation of the theater. A carpenter was working in a stairwell that had been closed off for many years. He suddenly ran screaming from the theater and onto Prince Street. When asked what was wrong, he said that a man in a light-colored suit wearing brown shoes and a straw hat walked up to him and asked him for a cigarette. Then he just disappeared before his eyes. The carpenter refused to return to the theater and never finished working on the renovation.
Carpenters.
So the next three sightings come from a friend of mine who was a scenic artist at the Fulton. The first story that she relayed to me happened shortly after she started working at the theater. She wasn't aware that there were any ghosts. She was working by herself on stage and looked up and noticed a man by the door that went out to the scene dock. Thinking it was an actor in the costume, she went to say hello, and he vanished into thin air. She said that he had a suit on, brown shoes, and a brown belt. So it sounds like maybe she's seen our friend from before.
Right.
Another experience she had was one evening while working with two other stagehands. They were working on something on the other side of the stage, and while she was painting, all of a sudden she heard voices say, "Get out!" Thinking it was one of the guys, she looked up, but realized they were still working on their project, and that it wasn't just one voice, but several voices, both male and female. She asked if they had heard that, and they had not. I believe she said it happened several times, and she finally just told them to stop. When she did, the voices laughed, and eventually things went back to normal. Um, the last story she relayed to me was when she was working alone painting. She had a radio on and tuned it to a station. All of a sudden, it got staticky and cut out. She went over and adjusted it and walked away, only to have it cut out again. She thought maybe it was sitting in a bad spot. I mean, we remember the days when radio was the only thing we had to listen to. So she moved it to a different spot, walked away, and it cut out again. Out of desperation, she said, "Would you stop that?" In that instant, the radio got clear and she didn't have any more problems the rest of the night. So, we'll see.
We're showing our age by saying that without a radio, by the way.
What's that?
We're showing our age with that radio comment.
I know. Go ahead and jump to the next slide, Jamie. The Fulton, until very recently, had a unique fly system. This is what is used to bring scenery in and out for different scenes. The system was derived from what ships used to hoist sails. In the world of theater, it is referred to as a hemp house because the ropes were originally made from hemp fibers. This type of system is not easy to use since it is basically individual ropes run through pulleys and have a special clamp to tie the lines together and hang sandbags on them. It takes a special set of skills to run a show like this. The show is run from an area called the pin rail. In the Fulton, that was about 20 feet off the floor and about 4 to 5 feet wide, made of wooden planks. It had 2 sets of rails with removable wooden pins to tie the ropes off. A good friend of mine and I often worked shows on the pin rail. She spoke of a spirit that watched over the area. I never saw him, but I could feel his presence. And if you look at the picture, the third picture from the left, he sort of stood from where that picture was taken. He just hung out there and kept an eye on things. The same friend had another experience in the basement one day. The background on this experience is that a medium friend described the Fulton as being a light pole, or what we might call a vortex, a place where spirits can easily pass between worlds. One day, while my friend was doing something in the basement, she looked up to see a spirit materialize out of nowhere. She said the ghost looked like he was lost and out of place, looked at her, and vanished immediately. So it was just like he had come in and was like, "I'm not at the right place," and just disappeared. So I'm going to wrap this up with 2 experiences that I had while working there. I was the master electrician, which meant hanging, cabling, and adjusting lights. Most of the time I had to do this when it could be dark on stage, so I worked alone a lot of the times. Both experiences, go ahead and jump to the next slide. Both experiences happened at the same location. Earlier, I was talking about the pin rails, which were on the left and right side walls of the stage, 20 feet off the ground, and they were securely fastened to the side walls of the theater. Between the 2 pin rails on the back wall of the stage was another walkway about 30 inches wide. That's what you see in the left picture there. It was about 18 inches from the back wall and was called a paint bridge. The idea being that a drop could be hung on a movable pipe on the back wall and the painter could work the entire drop from that location. Obviously, the bridge could not be tied to the back wall. It was suspended between the 2 pin rails. It was secure, but it would move up and down. My first experience there, while I was working on focusing a light, I felt something that seemed to come from the middle of the auditorium to right in front of my face. I couldn't see anything, but it was as if a bird had flown the 60 feet in a second. I don't know if it was a warning or what, but it certainly got my attention. My second experience at the same place, I was in the middle of the paint bridge running cables for a light. Being in the middle meant I had about 16 feet to go in either direction to get on firm ground again. This time, while I was reaching out to tie a cable to a pipe, it felt like someone had snuck up on me and jumped on the paint bridge. It definitely bounced, and it gave me a good scare. I don't think it was meant to harm me, but more like he wanted to be on the pranks that we played on each other. I did end up walking away and taking a break for a while. Now, a few things to wrap this up. Most of these activities happen during the day or evening. Some may have been 10 or 11 o'clock at night, but no later than that. I know I spent at least one night there, and there were other people who did as well. And nothing, it wasn't anything that happened during the late night hours. It was all when people would be there. So I just want to think like these spirits are people. They just want to coexist, be it an actor, a stagehand, musician, or Native American. They were once human, and I appreciate how over the years the staff that I worked with respected what was there. I do want to say that I did try to reach out to the Fulton staff on 2 occasions for information, but I did not get a reply. So the information that I presented was gathered from websites, memories, former staff, and other personal experiences.
Sure.
So Jamie, go ahead to the next slide. So what do you think? Paranormal or not?
Great question as always, right? That's what we always do at the end of the episode. So I have been able to go to the Fulton for many, many years as a patron, for like the Lancaster Symphony, for shows, and I had at one point, through a program I went through, called Leadership Lancaster, we had an opportunity to get a guided behind the scenes tour of the theater. So, places that a patron would never get to go, like downstairs and backstage, on stage, up in the lighting. It is a grand building, and with all of this history, consistent history of operations, I find it hard to believe, especially some of the saga, that happened with the Native American tribe. It's hard for me to believe that there isn't something going on. And, the arts bring out passion in people. I know people, I have friends who have been season ticket holders forever, and just because welcome to Lancaster, Canada, there's limited access to arts here. There's more so now perhaps than there have been in the last 20 or 30 years, but there was a time when there was a really dry thing. And the Fulton's always been the beacon of it, access. So I think there has to be something there. I mean, I've heard tales too, none quite as unique as your personal experiences, and I'll never be able to top that. But the idea of things moving, I've heard stories of that stuff being left in places and not being there, but somewhere nearby when they've come back for it. Prop people, especially, some stories from the downstairs areas, like the costume shop, things moving around in there, like just the sound of hangers moving. There's those stories of, and some of that's, ghost stories, right? And who knows if it's true or not? It could be a whisper down the lane thing. But theaters do bring energy. It just seems that way.
Well, you've got the energy of the people on stage, but you've got the energy of the people watching the show, and it's night after night after night of just pure and enjoyment.
It's a give and take, as well. Of that energy. The artist energy performing, and then the reception and the giving back of the energy, and applause, and maybe some booing occasionally. You never know. And all of the renovations that Fulton has gone through. You mentioned the first big round, but then the last 2 years, the finalization of this new iteration really brought back a lot of the luster of the property that had started to fade a bit, but also some of the expansion too into the neighboring buildings, for the workshops and the second stages and stuff like that. It has to bring something forward as well, if it's not necessarily from the original property, but from the surroundings as well. I would love, and I know we always say this, right? And I know the probability of this is slim, but I would love to investigate this place. And I know they're not friendly toward the paranormal, as many others have approached before. It has been visited by, I think, Ghost Hunters was there.
I don't know if they were there, but I know Katrina Widener was there with Portals to Hell.
Portals to Hell did it, but I thought that Ghost Hunters had done it. Perhaps I'm wrong on that, but it's we don't have the money that they can offer, right? Or the prestige that they could offer, as a local team. But it's always one of those things where it's always like, wow, it'd be great if we could. So if anybody knows anybody, kind of like we were commenting last week about the Accomac, if anybody knows anybody who can help us out here, we would love to pitch them at least an offer of what we could do. So yeah, I you've been there. So what do you think?
Oh, I have no doubt that no doubt. So, yeah, it's there's so much there, and like I said, there are plenty of stories, and some of the stories you just have to take with a grain of salt. Like,
Sure.
um, I don't, I'm not going to name names, but there's one guy who would have a story for everything, and it was just like, I don't know. So,
Yeah, we
uh,
all know that guy. Uh,
but yeah,
well,
it's
but
and
when you get to work with somebody, like you get to be there, right? Or when somebody you know and trust tells you something, you tend to believe it more than somebody who's always spinning a yarn.
right.
And I'm not knocking that person. Okay.
Oh no,
Um,
no.
but and maybe what they're saying is true, and I'm not in a place to take their validity away. But when you know somebody, you're more apt to believe what they tell you, and
Hmm.
especially as you get to know them well. And when there's no better way than working with somebody, on a regular basis, hand in hand, side by side, all that stuff. Being in the
Hmm.
same spaces. So I think it's
Well,
really cool that someone was willing to share their stories with you.
Well, and
Um,
that's what I was going to say. A lot of people have stories, and they don't share them, and there's multiple reasons for that, and I understand it.
Well, some
But
may not believe what they've seen. Like
right.
they just don't believe in that. That it's a paranormal thing. And this is the skeptic in me comes forward, is
Hmm.
I want to find out what it could have been, any angle of it at all, before I
Right.
say it's definitely a paranormal experience.
Right.
And there are others who just simply say nope. you know,
Hmm.
Nope.
Yep.
And they whistle by the graveyard, to get past it all, and you know,
Yeah.
there they go. They come back the next day, and do it again.
So yeah. So yeah. Like you said, I would love to get in there. I haven't even seen some of the spaces. Like
Ah,
I've dropped Zoe off at the
right.
front door and picked
Yep.
her up, but I haven't been in years. I think the last time I was actually in was when they were doing the telethon during COVID.
Right.
I
Doing a
worked,
fundraiser. Yep.
yeah, I worked on that, but I have not, I haven't gotten the opportunity to go in. Um, so,
Well,
and when
the
they
new
do,
season was announced yesterday.
mhm,
So, and that's a pitch here I will put forward to anybody. If you're in the Lancaster County area and you have an evening free, see a show at the Fulton.
mhm,
It's a Wednesday, Thursday through the weekend kind of thing. There's matinees on the weekend. It is a grand theater. It is a grand stage. There was not a bad seat in the house. It is a
except the
gorgeous.
boxes.
Well, the boxes are kind of bad, yeah. Although the boxes are actually really good for the symphony.
Yes,
Go,
yeah,
go figure, right? But not necessary for the shows. Well, not bad for the shows either. But you might have to look a little left or right depending what side you're on. But
mhm,
um, I've sat all over the theater, and for all of the events that I've gone there for, symphony and production, and there's not a bad seat. The acoustics are gorgeously brilliant there, and
mhm,
it's just that cool old place that you really should experience sometime.
mhm. And it's definitely improved. I worked there pre-renovation, pre the '95 renovation, and post renovation. And pre-renovation, it was dingy, it was dirty.
Yep,
They had in the '50s and '60s when they came in, they white painted everything. And
terrible.
when they started figuring out that it was gold, gold gilding underneath it, I mean, and a lot of what is, when you look up and see gold, that is actually gold leaf.
Yeah,
That's all hand gold leafed, and it's gorgeous. And the on the two walls, the like the proscenium, out from the proscenium, there's two cherubs that are up on the walls, and the detail is just amazing. The colors that they did, and yeah, it's just, it's like you said, it's definitely worth spending an evening there.
yeah, and the peanut gallery benches are long gone. There's very comfortable.
Well, no, they still have bench seats up there. They have two rows of bench seats in the
They're in the
peanut.
backpack, right? But
Yeah,
that's the bargain seats,
yeah.
true bargain seats.
So,
But anyway,
so,
like, and then the other side of that is, that going back to the very early days before the Fulton was built. The town doesn't look like it did then, right? Because of everything we built. But
hmm,
that corner is also that corner that is Prince and King.
Mm-hmm.
would have been where, the poorhouse was, and the workhouse, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
was. There has to be some consideration that there's an energy there as well. If everyone was as depicted was drug outside, it would have been in that intersection, or at least the
Right.
area of that intersection as well. Um, that's just amazing that we would, well, not maybe for the era, but it's amazing that that kind of activity could have happened and really people walked away scot free.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. So it's an interesting thing.
Thanks.
The point is, come to Lancaster and come visit
Yeah.
us.
Yep. Yep. So, did you, speaking of how things have changed, did you hear that when they were digging in the one basement to put some piping in the last renovation, they came across some bones, and they actually had to.
Well, I wasn't sure if this was a true story or not. So, okay, yes, I've heard
Yeah,
this.
this isn't this. I pulled this out of the newspaper.
Okay.
Um, they found some bones, and they turned out to be bird and cattle bones. So, I mean, just because when it was a small town, like the work yard could have had cows
Mhm.
and things and chickens and
Where do you think the manure came from?
exactly. So yeah, it was definitely the history. I mean, we're so lucky to have so much history where we're from. Like
Yeah,
it's
you're right.
it is
Yep.
so different than West Coast history, which has its own thing, but ours is so it goes so deep and
Yeah.
so far back. And
Well, this kind of goes to the conversation we had over the weekend. The Lynches were over in Europe, recently, and our 300-year-old history is, kind of an addition to a house there.
right,
Been there
right.
a lot longer, so it's relative.
Hmm.
But and I've often thought this, being on the East Coast, we are uniquely privileged to have the
Hmm.
the age of our history. Now,
Yep.
not all it's happy history, of course, um, but and having lived on the West Coast, there is unique history there as well. That's very old. It's just not colonial white people history,
Right.
and it is honored there as well.
Yep. Exactly. Um,
So to answer the question, right? Go ahead.
Todd, it's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's 12 North Prince Street in Lancaster. Um, it dates back the building that's there now dates back to 1852, and there was a lot of history there before that, which is obviously what we're talking about. So,
Yep. All right. Well, sir, well done.
thank you. Any other questions, Jamie? I mean, one thing that my friend told me that the 3 nights that she had activity, it was changing weather conditions outside. It was windy, and there was a weird energy outside, which seemed to translate into the theater. So I just thought that was very interesting. So
Well, there's belief there, right? That storms, you have the change in electromagnetic energy in the air, there, all that stuff. Rain, of course,
mhm.
water, all those things increase paranormal activity. Okay. Hey, there is no place like home. Click those heels every time, right?
And
But you keep
I've done
heading
the
further and further away in your travels, though. So I don't know. I'm starting to wonder about you.
I've done the Wizard of Oz at the Fulton.
Of course, of course.
So, well, any other thoughts on that, Jamie? Or
No, again, I'd love to get there and be there. You know, I, it's it's different. Just having had and you see this too from your time working there. It's different being there when the theater's empty
hmm
than it is, with a crowd of a show night. With everything going on. It's calm. It's quiet. It's very tranquil. You know,
hmm
um, and you can, as standing, this is the biggest stage I've ever stood on. Standing there looking up, at everything, like I can just picture, an actor's opinion or view with the energy of a crowd coming at them or a performer, either way, whether it be acting, music,
hmm
whatever. Um, it's a cool experience there. So um, I could see why somebody would want to stay if they'd left it,
hmm
moved on to another plane. So
Yeah.
cool, good stuff.
I'm sure Gene Clemson is walking those halls somewhere.
Most likely. Here's a quick question.
Yep. Yeah, Todd, I was there alone, and when you go back, and I don't want to spoil any of it, but when you go back and watch the episode, I had a couple personal experiences that didn't shake me up, but were definitely eye opening.
Yeah, and to this point, there has been very, very, very minimal, if any, real activity of investigations, just due to the closed nature of the business there. They just don't really want to open it up. And it's kind of one of those things where, if they let one in, they have to let everyone in almost in that perspective. So they've been very, very shuttered that way.
And to defend them, a production schedule for a theater is
Oh, yeah.
very tight. I mean, you have a show coming down, you strike it, the show that's going in has already been in rehearsal for 6 weeks.
Yep.
You're loading your stuff in. Like there is no downtime in a theater. You can't afford to have it. So
Right.
it's hard to, and shows run 6 days a week. Monday is their dark night. So it's really hard to, it would be a hard night to schedule things anyway. So
I'd find a day off for that. I would. I would.
I know, but yeah, but again, like the thing is that like they've got a schedule that they've got to keep to me, and that's where their money is.
Well, there's a lot of liability as far as what's going on there too, with the sets
Right.
up and all the things that are proprietary. These are all professional show sets, and stuff like that. They just don't want people messing with anything. And there's a lot of it's a big place too. It would take quite a while to investigate it. Huge property.
Yeah,
still on the wish list. Still someday, maybe. Who knows?
Lots of floors, a lot of basement area. Like there's just a lot there. So.
Yep.
All right, sir. So should we jump into what's coming up?
Yeah, let's see what we got. So coming up on the 18th, which is really right around the corner, we have a investigation at the brewery. There's still a few tickets left there. Looks like about 15. June 1st, we're back again. And it looks like there's less tickets there. June, we have 2 in June, which is unique. It's a long month, I guess. But the 29th, July 13th, August 10th, September 7th. We still don't have any dates beyond there. I'm assuming they're coming, once we get a little closer to the beginning of summer.
Rumor has it that they're supposed to be posted. I think it was on our website yesterday, or our Facebook page yesterday, that they're supposed to be posted very soon. I thought it was today, but I've been checking and it's not there. I think there was a drop on our Facebook page about the special Halloween investigation.
Ooh.
The spooky one with Ron and Lourdes and our friend Daryl. So check out the Facebook page.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. We've been biting our tongues here a little bit. We don't know what's coming after September 7th. We kind of do. We just don't have the exact dates yet. But I'm really excited to be able to finally announce that when we have the full dates up. So hopefully by next week we'll get you there.
So yeah.
Tickets are available at boobiesbrewery.com. Again, this is one of those things. If you're going to head into Lancaster County to see the Fulton, you might as well come and see us too. So make a weekend of it. Fulton Friday, us on Saturday. Doesn't get any better than that.
No. So, and then something else that's going on. Jotnick's Eclipse is looking for team members. So if you're interested in that, check it out.
If you want to be a paranormal investigator and you're in the South Central PA area, we are accepting, for lack of better terms, applications. It's not quite that, but there is on our Facebook page, or Jotnick's Paranormal and Jotnick's Eclipse pages, there is a form, like an informational document of how to go forward to apply, for lack of a better way of saying it. So, now's your time. Come out and have some fun with us.
Yep. I was looking on our page. I don't see that announcement that I saw yesterday, so maybe it's coming soon. So
maybe it's a lack of sleep. We're still thinking.
So
it's coming though. It will.
So,
upcoming. Thanks for editing this. I made a change, guys. I know. Last week we had presented that we were going to do the Haldeman Mansion next week, but there's been a little bit of change in thought process here. I would really like to have Jerry and Melissa Keller join us for that episode, and with some upcoming family situations, it's probably unlikely that we won't be able to do it on the 14th. So we're going to postpone that for a little while down the line, but not hopefully not too far away. And then I've changed plans, and we're going to talk about the dingo neck, which is something I came across a week or so ago. That it's one of those things where you see something, you pause, you're like, what? Funny name, unique name, but it's a to give a quick tease, it's an African water cryptid that is up to 18 feet long. It has the head of a dog, the body of a fish. So strange, right? Not a dogfish. That's something else completely different. It eats white colonizers. So, there's something. And it is a good fortune for the indigenous peoples of the lands that it protects. So I thought it was really a curious thing, and we haven't gone, down the line with cryptids in a little while. So let's go visit the dingo neck and see what we find. And then right behind that, we've shored this up with our side, but we just didn't make 100% sure we're clear on this. I believe we're going to do a reveal for the investigation we did at the Commonweal. And then, yes, everybody's been buzzing this, the Hotel Hershey. What a unique place there, right here in our backyard in Hershey, PA. The sweetest place, not Swedish, that's a country, Swedish.
Sweetest. Do you need some more Twizzlers, Jamie?
I need some more. I do. I have some in the kitchen. Sweetest. I can't say it, Ted. I can't say it. It's a pretty nice place. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I need some Swedish fish. Thank you. Sweetest. You ever have those things that you say and you can't say right? Like a phrase, all my life, I have always said a coat of paint wrong. I've always said a paint of coat. Always. So now I know I can't say sweetest. Still can't say it. I'm just going to turn my camera off now.
No, you can't do that yet.
How bright am I? Jeez. All right. Well, there we go. Thank you for making me not feel so strange. So more coming here. So a couple good episodes coming up.
Yep.
And then here's the ways to find us, the usual stuff. And obviously found us on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, or maybe Twitch. But there's the good stuff of TikTok, Instagram, and so forth as well. We haven't put a little any content up there in a little while, chat. So we gotta have a chat with the team, see what we can do to get a little boost in there. But there's some past stuff in there to take a look at if you're not familiar with us. It's a good way to catch up. Mm-hmm. All of our episodes are available on our Facebook page under the videos tab. There's a lot to catch up on. This is now episode 53, 4, 5.
54. Oh yeah. I forgot our banner, Jamie. 54.
It's all right. I'll give you the sleepy pass on this one.
Well, I was just so excited about the theater.
That's true. It's true. I was really looking forward to this one, and obviously didn't disappoint. There's definitely a lot to talk about. I think that, if it were a place where we could go, we would, and like we had time to investigate and, anything, we would probably have this episode go like 2 hours. So It's better that we haven't had a chance to get in, because at least this way we'll sleep tonight. At least sleep sooner. Nothing's stopping me from falling asleep tonight. But yeah, pretty cool.
So,
all right.
Well, we want to thank everybody for watching and hanging out with us again. Somebody said thanks for making Tuesday nights must see, but we can't do it without you.
Must the internet. That's it.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's very true. We can't. We say this all the time. This would not be nearly as much fun if Chad and I were just sitting here bumbling around with each other, talking about stuff. We appreciate the feedback and the comments. It really helps make it all special for us too. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, Jamie, anything else?
I got nothing. No, I'm like Robin Gibb in the Barry Gibb talk show. No, I don't. No, that reference is lost. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna sit down and watch some SNL clips sometime, Chad. You and I.
Okay.
No,
All right.
we'll catch you up. It's hysterical.
Okay. So,
All right.
Amanda, thank
I'm gonna
you.
put my earpiece back in for the 62nd time. So, all right, y'all. So, until
right.
next week. And a
All
Dean
right.
Have a great
Thanks,
week.
everybody. Good night.
Good night. All.